All right. Welcome back to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I am your host, Eric Thomas. Today, we are once again live in Nashville, Tennessee, and we are going to be talking all things construction technology, process, AI, a little bit more. To help me tell today's story, I'm joined by Raghu, the Chief Technology Officer at Power Design, Inc., and my very good friend, Sid Haksar, the Vice President of Construction Strategy and Industry Partnerships here at Autodesk. Gentlemen, how you doing today? You feeling good?
Doing good. Yeah, glad to be here.
All right. I'm happy to have Sid back for a third conversation. So thank you for sitting in the hot seat for a third time. And thank you again for connecting us to have this discussion too. Raghu's company is doing some incredible work and is very forward thinking for being such a large specialty contractor. And I'm really excited to get into the weeds of, the how, the why, and the what. Raghu, I'd love it if you could just kind of set the stage here for a minute. I know I mentioned that you have a fairly unique approach as a company of your size. I'd love to hear more about your company's structure. Give me a little bit more detail about how your team operates and what really makes what you're all doing so unique.
Power Design is a multi-trade subcontractor based out of St. Petersburg, Florida. We are working in about 28 different states, do 350 to 400 large commercial projects, 3,000 employees, 3,000 to 5,000 production partners that we bring into our projects as well. Do about $1.3 billion, $1.4 billion in revenue with a heady year-on-year growth in front of us as well. So a decent-sized subcontractor construction company that has a very, in my opinion, unique and interesting take where we lean in and we take our mission statement of trying to build trusted partners for our customers, for our employees, and for suppliers all the way through to the finish line. It is remarkable, right? And it changes our operational strategy and how we actually operate and how we actually structure our organization. Because when you think about this from a first principles perspective, you could probably say if customer experience and employee experience really matter, then you really want to actually set up the organizational structure to help protect it. And we do that at Power Design through a concept of having one office, one standard, one set of books, one team structure, one culture, no regional subcultures that exist in other organizations. And that translates to quality improvements that we see in our job sites, that translates to employee satisfaction. One of the stats that I'm very proud of from my team's perspective for construction power design is the low EMR rates that we have. We have a 0.52, which is incredible in the construction world. And that happens because of a deliberate approach that we take to the way our company is structured. So I think we are very nimble, very future-focused. The company is set up for success.
I love the fact that you're just so deliberate, but it is incredibly unique for a company of your size to have just this one single office. But I can see how that would translate into more consistency in the culture, more consistency in how you deliver to your customers. And that experience is certainly unique for both your employees and the people that you work for across the board. Sid, I'd love it if you could just talk a little bit more about what caught your attention. Why did you decide to connect us together and really get this conversation, bring it to life?
Yeah. So again, Eric, thanks for having me on the show. I think this is the best podcast on the planet, bar none.
Well, thank you, Sid. I appreciate that.
So I've gotten to know Raghu over the last, I would say, almost 2 years now. I really had the good fortune of visiting his company on several occasions. And every time I left for my visits, I just came away thinking, wow, this is probably one of the most innovative companies that I've seen. And they really live and breathe innovation from everything from prefabrication, and we'll get into this a little bit, to actually running their own fleets. As you think about trying to be as vertically integrated across the supply chain as possible, and their history and how they started, it embodies the entrepreneurial instincts and spirit of the founders. And it permeates across the entire organization. So it was extremely inspiring coming back from my multiple visits. And so I said it made so much sense for when you talk about digital builder, couldn't be someone better than having Raghu and Power Design represented here.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
I'm inclined to agree. And Raghu, I'd love to go a little bit deeper now. So you've made it clear that your company is incredibly strategic when thinking about the future of the organization. Can you tell me more about the steps your team has taken to keep this forward-looking focus instead of getting stuck in a reactive operating model like many general contractors, especially contractors, can find themselves in? Like, construction's a hard business. Like, how do you think so far ahead?
Yeah, you want to be deliberate, like we just talked about, right? You want to make sure you invest in training and technology. When you think about it, for a construction company, our most valuable asset by far is our people. And you want to actually kind of structure the entire organization around how do you make sure that our employees can operate at the highest level of productivity? And we take a very interesting approach, in my opinion, because prior to Power Design, I worked for other construction companies. And in Power Design, we take an aspect of being or trying to apply as much manufacturing principles as possible. So we want to try and have less variability, have more standards, leverage tech to actually amplify the work that we're actually doing. And it translates, right? So from a structure perspective for our employees, it's all about how do we double down on training. From a technology perspective, it's about being deliberate and ensuring that we're investing in the right tools and toolings to actually enable us to actually propel towards the future. We all talk about AI, and we're going to get into that a little bit as well. But it's an interesting arena that we're in with construction and technology in particular. I think it's going to be remarkable how actually things go forward.
And I want to click into risk management specifically as a core part of successfully managing a business of the size of Power Design. Can you tell me more about some of these unique choices? And I know Sid alluded to one earlier as far as the trucking and some of the ways you're taking control of more of your supply chain. But tell me a bit more about how you're really deliberately taking steps to manage a lot of this uncertainty. You're doing some very unique stuff, especially for a specialty contractor. It's very cool.
Yeah, when you get aligned on kind of what matters for the customer, you want to make sure, for instance, supply chain management, you want to make sure you're ahead of some of the challenges that exist. You have the tariff era right now, and this isn't something new either. You look at construction, we obviously control the labor side of it, but the material management is one that we can be at the mercy of from a third-party vendor. And we've taken multiple different steps. Like we just talked about an in-house switchgear manufacturing division that we ramped up in the last year and a half, and it's been a game changer. Switchgear was one of the critical key components that could make or break a project. The timelines for that were incredible for delivery to job sites. So in Power Design fashion, we said, well, why don't we insource it? Why don't we take a little bit more control of our destiny? So we are now a manufacturing company where we build our own switchgear. We do electrical prefab similar to other companies. We have trucking, we have Power Design trucks on the road because last mile delivery, especially to urban locations, is hard. And it's timing, it's about delivering at a particular window and having our own trucks that can guarantee delivery to job site superintendents just makes the entire process so much better and faster. A couple of other arenas that we've actually branched out in the last couple of years, we set up our first international division, our international office in Costa Rica. That was a recent endeavor for us. It's about a year for us. And a big part of that was, well, how do we get more capacity from a talent management perspective, especially for our VDC folks and designers? So it's taking a step back, trying to look at risk and saying, well, what are the challenges that you have? Labor becomes one, obviously. Material becomes the other one. And then how do we actually ground ourselves in ensuring that we're ready and set up for the future as well?
Yeah, it's all quite deliberate and very unique from most other organizations. I'm sure that's a big part of why we're sitting here having this conversation. And Sid, I just remember our kickoff call when you and I initially spoke about this, and you were so excited. It's like they're doing so many unique things. And I feel like many contractors right now, whether they're subs or GCs, are trying to find as many ways to take more control of their supply chain. And y'all have just taken it to the next level in an incredibly interesting and impressive way. I can just think of all of the the projects that I've been part of in the past where everybody's freaking out about materials delivery because it needs to be here between noon and 2:30.
Right.
And if it's not, we don't have another window to get trucks into this area and this size for like 2 weeks or 2 months or whatever. And so being able to exert more control in that moment, it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
But you have to have a lot of intention and resources to stand something up at that scale.
You want to be open to ideas as well, right? So one of the things that surprised me when I joined Power Design was the way we actually brought in fixtures from our lighting vendors early on to our organization, and we actually store that in a warehouse. The challenge that we ran into, which makes total sense in hindsight, is you don't want to be on a high-rise building, put in lighting fixtures for 25 floors, and then find out that the lighting vendor that you're actually working with went out of business, right? And you had to rip and replace all the different floors and all the fixtures that go into it. So bringing in all the material and storing it and then delivering it to the job site made a ton of sense. It made financial sense. It made logistical sense as well. But it's a different way to approach it because, especially when we were actually going down this path, I think the industry as a whole was trying to get into the just-in-time delivery method, right? So what is pretty fascinating for me is how the organization as a whole is built around the concept of looking at the problem, looking at it from what is the true issues that we're trying to solve, and then trying to rebuild and re-architect a completely custom process that actually solves that particular problem. And we have done a really remarkable job actually delivering it and delivering on the outcomes that we actually wanted as well.
Yeah, it's a very innovative approach. And I think at this point in construction, we have few levers that we have true control over to pull on in finding unique ways to really say, okay, like we're going to take this in now and manage it. It makes sense. And I'm seeing a lot of general contractors now doing an increasing amount of self-performance in a way that you haven't seen historically. And I think in a labor market, especially that is as competitive as the one that we're finding ourselves in today, you don't want to be beholden to who might happen to be available when the next project starts. And so bringing more of those tradespeople into your team, controlling a consistency with the quality you deliver, it all really plays a big part. It also plays a part not just on that one project, but in the overall success of the business long term. It's a big challenge to overcome. Steps like what you're taking really make sense.
Eric, if I can just add one other thing to what Raghu also said, there are two other aspects. One is they're extremely innovative from a technology standpoint too. And I know Raghu and I've had multiple conversations of scouring what's really interesting tech that can really enhance their business. The other thing which is actually quite fascinating is, and I'm sure Raghu can talk to this, is they are heavy users of the modeling process. They live in our modeling tools, right? But at the end of the day, when you think of an end-to-end story of how data flows, and there's been a big theme here at Autodesk around connected data, connected workflows, that's what power design really embodies. And that's kind of how the relationship between us actually evolved a couple of years ago. And for them to be, as a specialty contractor, you're always at the mercy of whatever systems you're dictated to by a general contractor. But for them to actually be very forward thinking and saying, here's where I think the industry is actually going to go. And this is the data that we actually need. So then we can start, and I know we'll get into the AI story, but this is how we can actually start making use of artificial intelligence to improve our business, led to some of the decisions that they've made in terms of how they've thought about their tech stack.
And you actually set up my next question very nicely, because I want to look closer at your company structure in this one central office versus regional offices as well. And can you tell me a bit more about how you successfully deploy and manage that very unique operating model? Because it's very different from contractors that operate all over the regions and usually have a small satellite office in all these areas. Like, how does technology play a role in that success? And what other aspects of these, this different approach really show up on the project sites and the relationships you have with your customers?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about kind of what's driving that business model, right? You want to have the consistency, the standards. You want to make sure the delivery on the job sites are done. But the client experience is consistent, no matter if you're actually working in Seattle or in Miami or New York City.
And that's hard to achieve.
That's hard to achieve. But the single office model actually kind of works really well for that, because all of our project managers are working out of one office. Now, that said, there are challenges with that business model. There are issues that you run into where that's the reason why the companies have regional divisions, because the number one question our new customers that have never worked with power design ask us in these new states is, why should we trust an out-of-state vendor? Why can't we actually work with local guys? And how are you going to be responsive? And the response to that is, well, we have our standards, we have our SOPs, and we have a technology stack that actually allows us to run these jobs remotely, gives us insights and gives us data points that we can actually ingest and actually can act on in a timely manner. The ability to actually have an issue occur on a job site, have it escalate through our organization, and actually have action taken on it is facilitated by technology. And we talked a little bit about the Autodesk adventure that we have been on and continue to be on as well. I think these platforms and these technology tools allow us to actually react very quickly in that fashion. We've always been big proponents of technology, and there's been a multi-year, decade-plus intentional approach to technology where we have gone with edge applications and solutions that solve particular problems. But when you get into a scalability side issue and you get into AI in particular, you really have to focus on platforms and per se, right? So you want to actually get into a platform that actually can be the system of record that you can leverage throughout the entire design to field process. And to what Siddharth was saying earlier, we have a pretty large design team, a pretty large VDC team. And when you think about that entire workflow that exists from design to construction and delivery and handoff to end customers, you want to get the one platform, right? So you can actually have custom processes, you can have edge applications that hang off of this particular platform that for us is Autodesk for multiple different reasons. But you want to have the consistent, governed data model that actually you can build off of.
I love this. And Sid, I've got another technology question for you in a moment, but I'm just thinking about early in my career, I was part of a few projects that were managed remotely from country to country, actually. And at that point in the technology stack that was available, this is, 10, 12 years ago, it was 4 megapixel cell phone cameras or just really terrible pictures, almost no video, emails, and a phone call. And I was part of a request for equitable adjustment when we were working for the government to try to get more funding for this project. And I remember sitting down with the project manager and just saying, help me understand what's going on. And that was like pulling teeth because it was going through messy folders of just terrible photos and no real document or agent of record to really analyze and say, okay, what happened that brought change conditions that would qualify for additional funding from this, this federal entity. And it was so hard. And it's just so exciting to see this moment today now where we step back and go, all right, like with the reality capture tools, with the platforms we're centralizing on, with the ability to capture and gather more data and information and centralize it. I wish I had all these tools in my hands when we were trying to do that REA years ago, because I think we'd have been more successful for one. It would have hurt a whole lot less to get there because we would have just had all that information in front of us. And so, Sid, my next question for you is, can you click in a little bit more on the role of technology in all of this and just being successful, especially for a business model like what Raghu is sharing, in how they are so remote first in not in that regional model? Like, what else comes to mind for you?
I'll just say one of the things when we were talking to Raghu early on in terms of what they needed for their field, I think it came down to it very clearly. It was for their field personnel.
Yeah.
Especially when you're a specialty contractor, you're the ones actually doing a lot of the work.
Yeah, your field first. I mean,
field first.
That's so important.
Your field first, your mobile first. How can you make it easy for you to be on a job site? Because there's enough chaos and there's enough unknowns that you deal with on a daily basis, right? So you want your technology to be a partner to you, not a hindrance.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect. The other is, how can you surface information quickly when you need it? Things are happening. You have to make decisions in real time. Most of the time you make it based on gut instinct because people have years of experience. But that's changing as you're looking at people churning out, more people coming in new, may not have that like requisite level of experience. So how do you provide access to that information? So I think being able to surface the right information at the right time, while also having a form factor which you can easily access information that you need in a simplistic manner, fewer clicks, I think it's very important. So all of that, what that does is it drives increased productivity.
Yeah.
The second aspect of it is, at the end of the day in construction, it's all about risk. How do you mitigate risk? So I think this is where, and we can talk a little bit later in more depth, is around risk management and how AI plays a role in having to mitigate some of that risk. But I think for us, technology has to be really field focused. I know there's a lot of opportunities in a controlled setting in the office, but I think when you're out there, things are changing so quickly on a job site.
Yeah. I love your point, though, about that augmentation between, we've got our old salt superintendent who's got 40 years experience, and he's been making choices and decisions based on experience and gut feel for the second half of his career because he's so confident in what he does, and he should be. But now we have this chance and real opportunity where we can combine these, where that gut feel doesn't go away. We don't want to dismiss the incredibly valuable experience that our leaders do have out in the field, but we're giving them more certainty now because they trust the information that's available to them. But to your point, that information is available when they actually need it, not 2 or 3 weeks later in retrospect where they go, well, gosh, we made the wrong decision. If we had that info, and then they get an eye roll and they never look at the tool again because it didn't do what they needed when they needed it. And so it's a really exciting shift. And I'm just so glad to hear that, you're feeling like you've got that field focused and field first technology in your hand. I mean, I've got an iPad in my lap. There's a phone stuffed in the seat cushion here. And, with the advent of tools like this and, the years of PlanGrid, which is where I come from joining Autodesk, the conversation has changed and it's just rapidly evolving with AI. And I've got a couple of questions in a minute for that. And Sid, I'd love it if you could actually take a look at the future here and click down a little bit more. What are people doing today, or what are contractors doing effectively to prepare for these big shifts and get ready for leveraging artificial intelligence in a way that feels meaningful and real, whether they're in the office or in the field? Like, what are they doing right now that's successful to be ready? Because it's here, where it's happening.
Absolutely. And I think one of the big reasons why I love Autodesk University is I get a chance to spend pretty much 3 days meeting customers, right? Whether it's general contractors, specialty contractors, owners. That's the beauty. You're serving multiple customer types. You try to see what's the commonality out of all of those three. And what it is AI is now becoming front and center for them. That said, they're also all figuring out their data management strategy. And all of that is also culminating into how they think about their tech stacks. Historically, point solutions was fine. You could actually say, hey, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. I don't want to spread it out. Now, actually consolidating on one particular tech stack is important. Otherwise, you will not be able to unlock the real true efficiencies of the promise of AI. Clear start. People are starting to invest in their data strategy, whether that includes hiring a chief data officer, thinking about that, or at least having a team that is looking at bringing data into a consolidated data warehouse that they may have, or putting one in place, trying to get off of things like Excel, getting more and more, I'd say, rid of point solutions that can be now found in a platform. You're seeing that shift from point solution product to platform, which is also quite interesting in terms of how we have heard, the notion of forma at Autodesk is, we're moving as a company as well in response to these needs from that point solution to platform.
It makes sense. And I'm hearing more and more about this consolidation. And I think at this stage in how the tech stacks are really coming together, every time somebody has to manually touch data, move it from something to a new platform, sometimes the fields don't line up. There's so much opportunity for errors and mistakes, a lack of continuity. You have data loss at that point, and nobody wants to do that. Also, that's painful work to do. Like that's just frustrating. And I think AI and this real focus on platforms is really bringing us there. It's the shift in the tide now where we're ready to go. And so, Raghu, I actually want to hear more about what your team is doing with AI. Like, how have you gotten ready for this big shift and what's happening in the field out there or in the office today with this, advanced technology?
Yeah. So, but to what Siddharth was saying earlier, I joined construction and I was introduced to the construction vertical about 20 years ago. And the journey has been pretty fun and interesting, right? I mean, you went from an issue where data capture and usability form factors at job sites were a pain to that pretty much being solved. We now have a different issue, which is we have way too much data. You talked a little bit about the photos that you had to collect years ago, and the number of photos that we have and how do we actually kind of process it and actually infer from it actionable next steps is a challenge. When I look at AI, when Gen AI became a real thing in 2022, 2023, what stood out was the ability to actually take structured and unstructured data and actually ingest it and run actual understanding inference on top of it. That is pretty amazing, right? It solves a very pivotal challenge that exists in construction. You have all this raw data. What can you do with it? And for us, I mean, so a couple of other platforms that we have used similarly, we use OpenSpace, one of the reality capture platforms, but we had the same challenge where we had dozens and dozens of photos, hundreds of photos. Now we have a system that actually is geolocating photos automatically, time-lapsing it over time, so we can actually look and see and process it at a very easy manner. So I think that shift is happening. I still think we're in a position where, on an AI level, it's still evolving at a breakneck speed. I think about a year ago, AI models suffered from hallucinations and lack of actually being able to conduct or ingest structured data through it. I think that's changed in the last year, probably in the last 12 months. I think agentic AI is a real thing. I think that's led to our shift at Power Design as well, looking at platforms to what we were talking about earlier. How do we actually get clean data? How do we get governed workflows? Because that's going to be pivotal to the AI world. I think it's a scenario where we can have all this raw data that we want to actually collect and we can produce all of it, but we have to put that in a very clean, structured, canonical model that can then be ingested by the AI system. So that's the future that we're looking at. I think from Power Design's perspective, we think there's about 12 months before this starts to really start getting real, where you have AI being embedded in workflows and actually starting to be actionable. So we have taken a much more of a cautious approach. Consumer AI is real. Everyone can use it today. I think agentic AI and embedded in workflows, I think is about the next 12 months. It's in the short to medium term time frame. And then the question then pivots to, well, okay, so this entire change to the way we work, the way we process data is going to happen. How do we then structure our organization to actually be able to be a fast follower when that switch flips and when this becomes a real thing? And a large part of that is, well, we have to platformize our technology stack. We got to move away from some of these edge applications and get into the clean data model. Autodesk was one of those pivotal decisions that we made strategically to actually move to that platform to enable us and open up and unlock all these capabilities that AI can provide. And then you also get into how do we get our staff to actually be ready for it? How do we ensure that our employees are resilient, are built with an adaptive model to actually be okay with the change that's going to come their way? I think companies are going to differentiate themselves pretty much in resiliency and speed. I think those are going to be the two key characteristics that'll either make companies thrive in the future era, AI era, or companies are going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And a large part of that is actually the change management. It's actually getting the workforce to be ready for it, getting the technology stack to be ready for it. I think that's where we still are. It's going to be real very quick. I think we got to do whatever we can to actually get ready for the wave that's coming our way.
Yeah, I think the hard work is here now as far as getting folks ready. And this tech shift is more abrupt, I think, than a lot of other tools. And if organizations aren't being very strategic about how they train and educate from the top down and say, this is our expectation on how you're going to deploy this tool in the field or in the office and how we're going to manage moving forward, folks might be a bit more hesitant, and especially in construction with the amount of work we already have to do. If you're not deliberately setting aside time for them to learn how to navigate the new normal in construction that's coming, they're not going to have the opportunity to do it, and they're not going to feel supported and secure to make some mistakes along the way as they figure it out. And so I think right now is the time to strike. Like, you've got to get ready. These tools are here. They're just going to get better. And I think it's going to bring some exciting opportunities to construction more broadly.
It's a case where you want to make sure the organization is set up for that change, right? So, and this can't happen overnight. I think it's a multi-year iterative process to actually get the workforce and the organization ready for being able to consume change at that level. A great example that comes to my mind is the switch that we did from FieldWire to Autodesk. We had 3,500 users. We had 1,000 projects or so that we wanted to convert, and we had to hit 400 different job site locations. We were able to do that entire conversion in 6 months at Power Design.
That's impressive.
Right. That is, I'm still in awe about the fact that my team was able to pull it off and get it done. But if you had come to me 10 years ago at Power Design and said, can we do it? That would have been impossible, because that amount of change to be crammed down superintendents and back office folks, it's a lot of change in a very short period of time. But there are things that you can do precursor-wise to actually make sure you're ready for that. That puts us as an organization now in a position where we can pivot and change on a dime. And I think that's going to be one of the superpowers that's going to make us successful in the foreseeable future too.
Yeah, there's a culture conversation that's wrapped up in all of that change. And regardless of the tool that you're adopting, especially with active in-flight projects, like, this doesn't mean that you just say, all right, well, wait till this one's done. Like, to be able to change mid, stride is incredibly impressive, regardless of what you're deploying. And at that scale, it's really cool. Well, gentlemen, I know you both have a very busy schedule at AU this year, so I want to get to my final and favorite question. And Sid, I'm going to throw this one to you first. You've answered it twice, so I'm very curious to see how you're going to answer it this time. I hope you don't pull the same answer out of your pocket. But what is one tool that you use in every project, no matter what you're working on?
I'm going to have to go for the third time. It's the same thing, because you know what? It is so true in everything that we do, whether it's not only with projects, whether it's with customer engagements, whether it's frankly with my own team as well. I don't think we have enough of it, and I think we need to do it. And that's with, leading with empathy, because it just is so critical. We just don't think about it, and we just jump into it. We presuppose, and it's something that it really helps build trust. So I would always say, lead with empathy.
Can I
like
just copy that answer?
No, you got to you got to have a second answer now. And I'm going to take back saying that you can't say the third one, because it is a good one. I do appreciate that, because it is really hard, and we get excited. We have a lot of things happening at work every day. And I think just being very intentional about how you interact with your team and lead with others in a role like your own, I think it's incredibly important. So I like that answer. Third time's the charm. It's good.
Yeah.
Raghu, how about you?
I really like the answer too. But on a more personal note for me, I think I really like putting together to-do lists and just crossing things out. There's something to be said about the dopamine hit you get when you actually cross things off the list. And what I always do is always walk around with a to-do list, write things down, make sure we actually cross it off. But that's what I've always done.
I'm a big fan of paper to-do lists in particular. And mine have evolved in recent years. And so I've said this on Digital Builder before, but I have ADHD. And so I have an inclination to create to-do lists that are not achievable in any way, shape, or form. Well, I'll be like, all right, this afternoon, I'm going to do these 37 things because I'm excited. And so I've learned over time now where I go, all right, let's make a to-do list for today that has 5 things on it, because that's achievable. And then the same thing for personal life, where I would have, all right, how many house projects do I have? All of them. And so now I'll make a to-do list for this weekend instead of the chaos to-do list that includes all 174 things. And that feels a whole lot more achievable and less overwhelming as well. So I love that answer as well. I like that dopamine hit of crossing things off too. I do this where I'll do something that wasn't on the list, and so I'll add it so I can cross it off.
1000%. That's the fun of it. You got to write it down and then cross it off immediately.
Yeah, got it done. All right, we're doing good. Well, number 1, 2, and 3 are still sadly neglected, but that's okay. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me here on Digital Builder. I really appreciate the insight, and your team is doing some incredible stuff. So, Sid, please keep bringing me gentlemen like Raghu. I want to have more of these conversations. For everybody else out there, if you haven't figured it out, I am Eric Thomas, your host of Digital Builder. If you're interested in watching new episodes, we're on YouTube. We release every week. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. And until next time, goodbye.